This is Critical Commentary with Maurice Williams. Today we'll be discussing the release dates of the Epstein files, finally, black hair versus non-Negroid hair, and Nick Fuentes discussing his views on the Jews some more. Blacks, Hispanics, and whites can't read. Why you think I started a podcast? It's a fucking racist thing with you niggas, and that's why I'm coming at you niggas next. They love to talk about black violence. Have you heard of white violence? White people commit violent crime at 3 times the rate of Asians. When is Nick Fuentes gonna talk about white violence? Everybody's arguing about their 2 genders. I sat next to her hermaphrodite in math class. Am I allowed to talk about the Jews? If she wanted, we could do it in the morning. Yawning, letting my eyes stretch, baby, I ain't a novice. I've been a dog, she FaceTime, but I never call. Yesterday, the House voted to get the Epstein files released. Then the Senate voted to do so, and then Trump finally signed it. So now we're learning more about when the files will actually come out. The release date of now is expected to be sometime after Thanksgiving, so probably the last week of November. And many senators are already speaking out on both sides. Specifically, the senator of my home state, Louisiana, Kennedy, has said that he would like Bandy and Trump not to slow roll this. They don't want this to be coming out in January. They want the files to come out as soon as possible, as well as senators and Congress people, House representatives on the Democratic side are also saying they don't want this to be slow rolled. Even though the files are coming out, both sides are still a little weary that because there's an investigation going on and because they're already stating that some of the information pertains to national security, they think they're going to be a lot of things and a lot of names redacted. So people online are already saying basically it's just going to come out with a whole bunch of black like they did for Martin Luther King, like they did for John F. Kennedy, etc. The alien files, the UFOs. It's just going to be a whole lot of information that we don't receive. But Trump has said that they'll release the 20,000 documents. So there's hope and optimism that people will at least get a majority of the information. This was about face a turn from Trump, who initially said he released them a long time ago, but then in the last few weeks, he was starting to say they should look into the Democrats. He was starting to say it was a hoax that was being perpetuated by the Democrats. But again, because of the politicians keeping their feet to the fire, he had to sign it. So now that it's out, he and the other people that their names are in it will just have to see how the American people feel about the information we come across. I'm very glad. I think a lot of people are glad. Many people thought the day wouldn't come. Now the day has come, but we're still skeptical. So even though we're going to get the information, we're all still skeptical because now we're like, okay, well, what exactly are we going to see? But the good news is that these survivors, they won't get their day in court with him, with the not just Jeffrey, he's passed. They won't get their day in court necessarily with the prominent figures, but at least this information will be known, so it's somewhat on the record and the public knows about it. So whether it's Bill Clinton or whoever, they're talking about various other people on the Democrat side lately. They're talking about various people who weren't themselves politicians, but they were high members in the Democratic establishment or the political establishment. So they may have been lobbyists, they may have been chief of staffs, they may have been advisors, etc. So those people, if not just their name comes out, I'm thinking about Larry Summers, but there are some others. Not just their name coming out, but if there's hearsay, whether it's from Jeffrey Epstein or survivors, etc., in these emails, people are gonna take that as not just incriminating evidence. People are gonna say these are private emails, so why would somebody be lying in a private message? They're gonna take that as evidence that the things alleged actually did happen. So the good news is that we'll know about these people and we can get them out of politics for the long run, and we can kind of clean up the swamp, as some may say. Actually, Tim Burke discussed that a little bit today, but he was talking about a separate topic, but I'll just cover it now. He was covering the insider trading in Washington, and he brought up it's some site where they've been something about whales, where they've been monitoring Nancy Pelosi's stock decisions. So that's called insider trading because basically the politicians are obviously getting information not just about the stock market, but information about the companies prior to the rest of the public. And they're also creating the laws so they know they have information and they give the business owners the information prior to the public knowing about it. So because of this, sometimes something they may know weeks in advance. Sometimes it's something they may know days in advance. It's really similar to the gambling scandal in sports, where the people who are involved have knowledge before the public. So they've been tracking Nancy, but what Tim Burkett said, and that's my guy, he's a very honest person. What he said yesterday was, it was either yesterday or today. What he said was he has somebody else handle his stocks, and he has some like company or whatever, so he doesn't personally do it. But he also said that all of this stuff they're saying about Nancy, though it's bad, she's not even in the top 10 in terms of people making money, whether congressmen or senators. So I think that we need more people like Tim Burke, who happens to be a Republican. I think we need more people who are willing to tell the truth and not just say that it's on both sides, but say, well, this is the solution that I did to remove myself from this. Basically, by him having a third party that invests for him, though he's not making the decisions himself with his own money, which would be tough for some people. They would say, well, I want to make the decisions myself about my investments. But because of the position these people are in, they need to find the third party. So I think that's kudos to him, and I think they should actually do something in terms of their internal rules. I don't think you can make it a law, but they should do something about their internal rules to make it more impartial, and that will help some of the corruption from the standpoint of it won't help them enrich themselves. Now, outside of that, we also know there's government corruption on both sides, where they're doing things for the lobbyists and they're doing things for certain political PACs, etc. Again, they need to clean that up, but you got to take it one step at a time. So before we talk about what they need to do to represent us better, we could at least deal with this obvious, blatant insider trading that's been going on. Sorry for the tangent, guys, but now I'll move on to, there was a clip that I came across. There were two. So actually the one about weights coming up first, but there's also one where Michelle Obama, the former first lady, spoke. So some people were talking on X about weight and the various weights of black women. So they were saying that the black women are fat, out of shape, etc. So I took some time, looked into some of the statistics. I mean, guys, a lot of this stuff just goes along the same pattern. But so in terms of the weight of women, the most, it's called BMI, body mass index. I'm just going to speak in shorthand because that's how I'm more comfortable talking about it. In terms of the weight of women, the East Asians are the most fit, least overweight, then followed by the Caucasian women, white women, then Hispanic women, then black women. So it's a few things that play, obviously dieting. Historically, black people have had a different diet, even going back to slavery with chitlins and things, etc. Soul food, they've had a different diet than white people. But also genetics are at play as well, because scientific studies have come out, etc., saying that, I'll just use this one example. You could have two people of like black and white is mostly what they study. So I'll continue to look into this, guys, to give you guys even more specifics. But you could have two people eat the same plate of food. They did the study on salt, for example, white and black. The salt has more of an effect. The same amount of salt, it's the same food, the same proportions. The salt will have like slightly more effect on African Americans than Caucasians, right? So when we make these statements, a lot of times they come from a place of truth. They are true, but I just like to point out to people that some of the differences that we say are cultural, but sometimes they're cultural because of the genetics. But I'm just gonna show this a few of these clips because I think it was a white woman who made the comment, but I think it was a black person who sent this video, and it's just showing like a few different women, their heights, their weights, etc. I won't say what the standard, what weight women should be, even though when I looked this up, if you're like 5'2", you're supposed to be a certain weight. If you're 5'4", you're supposed to be a certain weight, etc. But I will play this video so people can, see what I'm talking about.
Share something with you. This is my body, and these are my measurements. And you might be wondering why I'm sharing these with you. And it's because sometimes I look at girls and I so desperately want to know if that's what I look like to other people.
And there's two more.
It's something that's better when it's thick instead of thin.
A person.
Dave, I know what you're talking about, boy. Oh, I'm talking about, yeah.
Okay, so all of these women would be considered overweight. The point of this clip, though, that the person sent was to show that people can be the same height, same weight but look different because people obviously they carry their weight in different places. Some people, for women at least, some carry it in their hips, some carry it in their buttocks, some carry it in their bosom, etc. So I don't think any of these women were fat for sure. Whether they're overweight or not, I mean that's a technical answer, but I do think that the conversation is like it's not just nuanced, it's important, right? I do think that people, when you look into it from a health perspective, when you're overweight, obesity, actually being overweight, it can cause health complications, complications with the heart, complications with the lungs, diabetes, etc. Right? So I think that people should watch their weight, eat healthy, but also not always take criticism as something meant to hurt you, right? So there would be benefits to men and women eating better, exercising more. So I promote that, and I do believe that. Now I'm thinking about that singer, that black woman. Can't remember her name, but she was a large rapper, and then she lost a lot of weight. She didn't lose the weight to become more sexually desirable. I don't think. I think she did it because she was having health problems. So my point of saying this is that I do think sometimes what gets lost when people make comments is that people take it as a criticism. So I'm definitely not criticizing these women. I'm just stating that there will be benefits to society if people were healthier, and people should look into that for just the purpose of living a longer life, living a fuller life, living a happier life, living a life without needing medication or without having complications. But at the same time, it's also fine on the other side to point out that I spoke about race, but even outside of race, every family and every group of people is genetically different, right? So some people are just going to be, they call it big bone. Some people are just bigger, and it's not so much that you don't care or you're lazy. Everybody's, genetic makeup is different. So I'm just stating this to say that, not just to say that I see both sides, but that also both sides have valid points, and there's nothing wrong with this conversation. So I'll go on to what Michelle Obama said. I actually disagree with what she said, so I'll state what she said. Basically, she was saying that, and she's an older lady. I think she's in her 60s, so maybe her perspective is different from mine as a younger African-American person, but she was stating that the reason why, and you'll hear it yourselves when the clip is played, but she said the reason why blacks are struggling on the job, and the reason why blacks are overweight, and the reason why they don't work out is because we can't have our hair the way we want. So I think that's bonkers. It doesn't even make sense. The only valid thing I would say from that is black hair is different from white hair. So when people are talking about what's professional and what the standards of what's professional but was not professional, because this country, was created, it was founded, the current country was founded by the non-Negroids. It's not just about being black versus white. Even Middle Eastern people, Indians, East Asians, everybody has more straight hair than the conch hair that I have, correct? So basically, that form of hair, you can do certain things with it that you can't necessarily do with African American hair. So though I disagree with Michelle, the reason I'm covering this issue is that I do think people need to understand the difference between professionalism and racism, right? So professionalism would be stating, if you pay attention to the business world, whether they're white women or white men, Indian women, Asian women, etc., there's a professional way people hold their hair. So, for example, you don't have as much long hair in the professional field. You also don't have hair coming in front of your face. So I think that a lot of times African-American people, some of the styles that we like, their longer form hair, whether it's dreads, whether it's braids, etc., sometimes they're long, and also sometimes they come in front of our face. So I think that the problem that we can get into sometimes as a people is we'll be thinking that a person is saying just purely the style of hair, whether it's natural or whether it's long, no, not long, but whether it's natural or a style of hair that is considered black culture, that's why the people in the professional world are telling you not to do it. That's not always the case, because I'm sure a lot of white people who are in the corporate world want their hair longer or want different types of haircuts, but they have to adjust and acquiesce to what's professional, what people think, what makes the customers and the clientele comfortable. So that's a conversation that I think black people should be able and willing to have without automatically just saying that the person is telling you to do this for racist reasons. But I'll let Michelle, speak, and then I'll get into my other thoughts on this topic.
Something to white people. Our hair comes out of our head naturally in a curly pattern. So when we're straightening it to follow your beauty standards, we are trapped by the straightness That's why so many of us can't swim and we run away from the water. People won't go to the gym because we're trying to keep our hair straight for y'all. It is exhausting and it's so expensive and it takes up so much time. Braids are for y'all so we can work harder and focus on the work. So why do we need an act, an act of law to tell white folks to get out of our hair? Don't tell me how to wear my hair. Don't wonder about it. Don't touch it. Just don't. It just...
So like I said, a lot of this just sounds foolish to me. I don't know, like I'm a different generation. I feel like you can do what you want. It's just more about the professionalism. But what I was trying to do was hear her out and maybe why people think what they think. And so my thought process would be this. As a black person, because I experienced this as well, no matter how I cut my hair, it's going to match some stereotype that people already have of black people. So I could have dreads and people could say I look like a killer, but I don't have dreads. I have a low cut. They still think I look like a killer. So the point of me saying that is that there's an aspect to what people are asking professionals in the black world to do that fits normal professionalism. So there should be more of a conversation of, okay, white people, black people, we do have different hair. What are the natural styles of hair that will fit what's professional, and also not just fit what's professional, but we have to consider the clientele as well is all of America. So when we're in the public space, just like we can't talk on YouTube, I can talk how I want, but if I were to go on Fox News, right, I couldn't just curse. There are standards in every platform, every medium that you have to follow. So though this may seem like it's a silly conversation, I do think it's important because there's a percentage of people, African Americans, who have a certain type of hair, and we do need two things need to happen. We need to find a way to wear our hair that's professional, that works for us and works for society. But then also the conversation in general, I'm more so talking about, is not really just about hair. It's about different cultures, right? So I haven't got into Hispanics. I don't know much about them, Asians, etc. We have talked about Jews a little bit, but we have a multicultural society. So what we do need to understand is that every voice matters. Every voice may not hold the same weight because 50% holds more weight than 10. And then in regards to hair, 90% definitely holds more weight than 10. So in terms of hair, I'm sorry, black people, we're really at the minority. We can't even have other groups come in to help us in this conversation to make it to go against the other side. But I do like the conversation. I do like that people are discussing these things, whether it's weight, whether it's hair, or professionalism, etc. And hopefully, with the younger generation, as things are more on social media, we can find compromise, because I think that'll make people more open to talking to one another. It'll lower the temperature. That way Americans start seeing themselves as Americans and not just your race or your gender, etc. Because I do think that is a big problem. Like last episode, I stated I don't have a problem with whites. I don't have a problem with Asians. I don't have a problem with blacks or mixed, different mixed groups. That is true. I think that you should always represent who you are, whether it's because of your, not because of your race, but whether it's your actual race, or what I was thinking in my head was you have black people who may adopt styles that seem white, or white people who adopt styles that seem black. That's fine to me as well. The main thing is that we should just all be respectful of one another and be comfortable, with the differences. So, if things like that come up, throughout the time of this show, we'll cover some of the more lighthearted issues, and then I may also turn them into more serious issues, because that's just how my mind works. Now they have a few clips from Nick. This first one is talking about the right and the left. So this is continuing. He has a few things going on with him. He's got a beef. Nick, the alt-right, they have a beef with the traditional establishment and MAGA, but then also Nick is considering possibly working with some people on the left. So this is from Fuentes Updates. Both the right and the left are saying America first, stop the genocide.
Or could it possibly be? Honestly. Because you have on both sides, you have on the right and on the left. On the right, you have Christians who believe in human rights, Christians who believe in universalism, Christians who believe in mercy and compassion, Christians, and by the way, American patriots who believe in America first, against a foreign policy where we go out in entangling alliances in search of enemies to destroy. You've got people like Marjorie Greene, Tucker, Candace, me. We don't even all like each other. We don't agree on much or on everything. But we all come together and say, we don't want to see a genocide in Gaza. We don't want to see a war in Iran. On the other side, you have the progressive left. You've got Hassan Piker. You've got Anna Kasparian. You've got Zohran Mamdani. And they're saying, as liberals, they're saying this is an ethnic cleansing. A vulnerable people is being dispossessed of their land. They're being disenfranchised. They're being killed brutally without regard for human rights or international law. They're saying that offends our conscience. And what's more, we don't want to pay for it. And clearly, groups like AIPAC and billionaire oligarchs are bribing Congress, bribing the Republican Party to look the other way and support it. On the right and the left, we're also saying something to the effect of, we want to put America first. We don't want to fight Israel's enemies, and we don't want to pay a foreign government. We want to pay our own people. We want affordability. Right, left, and center, the people are suffering. Inflation is high. Prices remain high. We're in the midst of stagflation, a frozen job market. Giant question whether AI will deliver. The government's insolvent. On both sides, we want to prioritize a domestic agenda, a trade policy, an infrastructure program that is going to create good paying jobs for us, investing in public services. But we can't do that when we're fighting a war with Iran or giving Israel limitless missiles. And to this, you have Jews on the right and left. Okay, think of it. On the right and left outside of this, you've got Tucker, Marjorie, me, Candace, Christians and nationalists. On the left, you've got liberals and progressives. Zohran, Hassan, Anna Kasparian, we're all saying something like America first, stop the genocide. But the Jewish community, right and left, Barry Weiss and Ben Shapiro, John Fetterman and Ted Cruz, Joe Lonsdale and the Adelsons, as well as other billionaires, as well as other people situated on the left. They're all saying, no, these guys are the problem. They're isolationists. The America Firsters are isolationists and backed by Qatar. The progressives, they just hate Israel. They're third worldists. And they're bankrolled by the Muslim Brotherhood. You've got the Marxist Islamists on one side. You've got the Qatari Nazi isolationists on the other. And we need to control the media. We need to buy CBS. We need to buy TikTok. We need to make anti-Semitism laws. We need to take back control over the governorship of New York, the presidency of Columbia University, the mayoralship of New York City. We need to wrest back control over the media, so that we can keep the gravy train flowing, so that we can keep Israel getting the missiles to defeat Hamas, keep Israel getting the support to defeat Iran and expand their country. And in order to do that, we need people not to criticize our influence in America, which purchases those things. Could it be any more clear? What else would Joe Lonsdale, Barry Weiss, Fetterman, Shapiro, what else would they all have in common other than that?
Okay, guys, so you said a lot. I agree with a lot of it. I'm going to, in the sense of fairness, I've been agreeing with Nick a lot, but I'm just going to cover both sides of the situation, even though I don't agree with both sides this time. I'm just going to cover both sides. So what he's saying is he stated what he thinks of the right, and he was kind of a little more generous to the right than the left in some aspects, but he said that the right was America first. They were patriots, he called them. He said they were Christians. They believed in humanity, forgiveness, etc. And he said that group was against some of the things that Israel is doing, the extreme right, but then he also brought up the extreme left, who he disagrees with a lot. He brought up Anna Kasparian and some others, Hassan Pachman and other people, and he said that though they don't dislike Jewish people in Israel for all of the reasons that the people on the right do, they do see problems with the genocide. They do see problems with the European Jews taking advantage of people who are not a minority, but third world, just not as technologically advanced. He's basically saying that the left considers it an occupation. It's a genocide, what he called it. They're killing a group of people who are not able to defend themselves and protect their land. So he's saying that these two sides that disagree can at least agree on one thing. And then he's saying that because you have Jewish influence on both the right and the left, up the middle, through the media, through the corporations, even social media now, he brought up, I think his guy's name, Larry something, maybe Larry Ellis, but don't hold me to that, guys. He bought he bought TikTok. So they're TikTok was getting a lot of views on people who are pro-Palestinian and people who are against the war, promoting Gaza. People who believed that way and were putting out content that was pro-Gaza, they were getting a lot of views. And then this guy who was Jewish bought the platform, and they started to try to tamp down allowing those type of views to, first off, even be posted. They didn't want them to go viral. They started telling people you couldn't use certain terms like juice, etc. They just were trying to clamp down on anything talking negatively about Jewish people. And then also, obviously, in terms of the politicians, as I mentioned before, they can't even speak about Israel in a negative way because they would lose their funding. So most of them feel like they either have to be quiet or say something pro-Israel. I know that Israel is supposed to be our greatest ally, but we should at least be able to question why. And you can't question why because that's considered a criticism of Israel. Then even more recently, I found out they actually have already passed the laws, and maybe it's over 20 states, that just not even being willing to pledge a oath to Israel is considered a crime. So you can again question America and question the government, question the politicians, but if you question Israel, on paper you could be arrested or fined for it. I'm not sure if they're actually holding this law, like it's a law in the books, but I don't know if they're actually following it, because I think people would be in outrage like I am just learning that it's even on the books, right? It's making the Jewish people in Israel look worse than probably they intend by passing this law, because they're literally saying that above all other governments in the world, if you're an American citizen and you say something bad about Israel, we have to either fine you or arrest you just for speaking negatively about a foreign government. So it's obviously crazy. It's obviously highlighting what Nick has been saying for a long time. Whether I want to accept it or not, I have to be frank with you guys. If this law is on the books, Israel has too much influence, period, right? Because that's not American citizens did not want 99.9% or whatever. Well, I guess 2% of the population is Jewish, but you guys get what I mean. The vast majority of Americans would not care that much about Israel to state, if you just criticize them, that you should be arrested or fined. So I agree with what Nick is saying, but I do want to cover the second part, because I saw online people are now, as Nick is shifting, people are catching on to it and they're saying some things I don't agree with. But when I didn't agree with Nick, I tried to point out the logic in what he was saying. So I just want to point out the logic into what people are now saying about Nick, as at least his position with working with liberals has changed. Not saying all his positions, but he's open to working with liberals, people on the left who he used to talk, negatively about. So in this compromise that he was talking about, he still is against Israel. And that's one of his main points. But in terms of safety nets, so like welfare programs, social type ideology, he's stating that there's some openness on his side. And he even said that in this clip, he was stating that things need to be done as far as, he didn't say equal pay, but wages. He said affordability, but he also brought up rising wages. And I'm pretty sure he also was meaning like programs to assist people who are low income, right? So that shift from him has people who are in the middle. They're stating that Nick is coming. They called him, it's kind of like two-faced on both sides. They was calling him a Nazi before. Now he's trying to compromise, and they're still calling him a Nazi, because now they're trying to say they're calling him a national socialist. So what they're saying their concern is, and this was their concern when he had his other position. So that's why I'm kind of laughing now that I'm saying it out loud. Now they're saying that Nick he's pro-white. He said that another clip, not this clip. He's pro-white, pro-European society. But now he's also trying to push populism and push programs that help everybody. So they're basically saying that he's going down the fascist route. He's going down the Hitler route, and basically saying what he's going to want is he's going to want something for the American people as far as socialism and programs, but then he's trying to push his nation, and they're trying to say he means white Americans. He's trying to push that over everything else. So they basically have now said, in changing his position, he's saying what he always thought, and that's that he wants programs for white people, programs for poor white people, Israel not to have any influence, but he wants a white ethno state, basically. I don't agree with that narrative, but I can see how if Nick is leaving from libertarianism, which I'm still a libertarian, I still want free market. I mean, he wants free market, but I want free market and I want less government interference. I see how they're saying his end goal is he wants to get in government to, of course, get Israel out, but then also if his group were to get in government, he would continue on and go back to his old way of being, and he would try to start pushing pro-white ideology, so things that would help whites and hurt other people, because even in his past, he brought up remigration. So there's basically a new conspiracy going on with Nick now that, he hasn't really changed his views. He's just trying to get in power so that he can push this white national socialism to the American people. I'll go on to the next clip of him. This is the quote, so I won't even read the quote. I guess it's about Jewish people, I think. So we'll hear, see.
World Jewish Congress, the North American Jewish Federation, the Jewish Leadership Fund. It's Jewish people coming together on the basis that they're Jewish, asking what is best for us. I'll also say one last thing. This is why this is so maybe remarkable. It's because the premise of Western civilization right now, the post-World War II consensus, is that everybody, and in particular white people, cannot do the same thing. Right? The post-World War II consensus is that you cannot organize on the basis of race because that leads to the Holocaust. Example. If I got up and said, I am for a white power organization, we're going to have a white conference, only white people are allowed, and we want to do what is best for whites. We want all white people from all around the world to come here, all white billionaires, all white influencers, all white politicians. We want to come together in a big convention, and we want to use our power to do what's best for whites only. How can whites protect our interests as a group? Like, what would you call me if I did that? You would call me a Nazi. And why? The Nazism leads to Holocaust, so we can't do that. You have to leave your racial identity at the door. And as a matter of fact, we have to let in immigrants. America's not white. Europe is not white. Whiteness doesn't exist. Whiteness doesn't matter. Whiteness isn't real. So this is the political dynamic. It's that the Western world was white, is no longer. Why? Because we can't defend our racial identity. We can't identify as whites. We can't protect our interests as whites. We can't organize as whites against this invasion from the third world, where they are hostile to our culture. They're attacking our heroes, our monuments, our holidays, our religion, our culture. They assault us physically. They're diluting our representation in the country and then therefore our power over the institutions. But Jewish people do this while telling us that we can't do the same.
Okay, so he said a few things. Now, this is back like normal, Nick. I agree and disagree. So, yes, after post-World War II, after civil rights, basically all minority groups basically were allowed to do things to help their minority and to help themselves. But when white people try to do the same, they're not allowed. And he brought up the reason why. He brought up Hitler. That's one reason with Jewish people. But then also the history of whites in general, like with Britain, they went colonized much of the world. They went invaded much of the world. Australia, where they had Aborigines from East Africa. America, where they had East Asians, which we call Native Americans. And then also after what Hitler did to the Jews, and then also what Britain did, also in America, they had slaves, but then they had Jim Crow. So there's been a history basically of people in modern and recent history that we study. There's been a history of white people doing for themselves and doing things for themselves that cause harm to other people. So that's why there's the fear that if white people say white power, they're the majority, all the minorities are concerned that if they were to do things just for themselves, it would hurt the minorities. So I understand the fear, and I think that white people should still be allowed to have things to themselves and to discuss their culture, to have private meetings, etc. It just comes down to like, okay, how much can you trust them? They've done it before. They may do bad with the power. I do think they should be allowed to because everybody else does. So if you have like an Asian convention and it's East Asians, nobody says anything. If it's a Jewish convention, nobody says anything. Obviously, if you have an African American convention or schools, even for African Americans, nobody says anything. And it's not just the schools and the conventions. You could literally have black people saying, I'm pro-black, I want all of these things for black people, and it's fine. What I will say is that in a structural, from a structural and power perspective, we've never in America had like black people in control and then say, well, we want to kill the whites, or we're in control, we want to, I shouldn't have looked that way, but they've never been in power and in America, they've never been in power and stated that they wanted to kill whites and then went out and killed whites from a position of power. There are black people who kill white people, or blacks kill whites more often than whites kill blacks per capita, but it's not from a structural place of power. So the only issue with what Nick is saying is that the reason why all the other minorities, two reasons. For one, all the other groups are minorities. So if you were to put us on level playing fields and you had the whites do for them and blacks do for them, the whites would win. So all the minorities feel as though because the whites have the majority, if they were to act in the same way that the minorities act, it would cause a huge problem to the minorities, and the minorities may not even be able to survive it. Whereas what people think, and this is where victim mentality comes in, whereas people think that if people were to do it to whites, because there are so many white people, the minorities feel like they don't have the power or the ability to harm whites enough. I would just use DEI because I see and from that perspective how it can hurt white people. Even though they're a majority, if you've got different standards for like whether it's women, gay people, people of color, etc., and also DEI does help white people because East Asians perform better than them, and some of the things that's in DEI, white people do use it to compete with East Asians. But generally speaking, DEI is helping black people, Hispanics, women, etc., more so than whites. So I see how the power structure has somewhat changed with affirmative action and things like this. In a way, even though black people didn't create the structure, the white liberals created a structure where white people are systematically being harmed. So I see that, and I think that there's nothing wrong with white people speaking out against that, which white people on the right have. So I would like to see more of an honest dialogue and the people to try to see what I'm saying and understand that the black doctors are not asked to do what the white doctors are asked. White doctors aren't asked to do what Asian doctors are asked, but the white and Asian doctors are closer, whereas the Hispanic and black doctors, there's a wider gap between them. So what I would want is everybody to have to meet the same requirements. I want the black lawyers, the black doctors, the black medical students, and the black law students to all have to meet the same requirements. But right now we basically have 4 different requirements. We have a set of requirements just for Asians, a set of requirements just for whites, a set of requirements just for Hispanics, and a set of requirements just for blacks. And I'm bringing up schooling, doctors, lawyers, etc. But I haven't looked into this enough, but I think that that's probably how it is across the board with all of the executive positions, with all of the not managerial, but the top high skill positions. So I do think that needs to be addressed. But I also do think it needs to be addressed, the hypocrisy from the right, where all of these things that they're saying they can't do that other groups do, they're saying that the other groups are wrong for doing them, but yet one of the loudest speakers, not loudest, but one of the big speakers for them is Nick Fuentes. He wants to do these things for white people. So if it's wrong, it's hypocritical from the standpoint of saying you want to do it, but you're saying that when other people do it, it's wrong. So it just highlights how on the other side, when something is going against what they want, they'll call out that the other group is doing something wrong. But if their group were to do it, it would be totally fine. So another example of this would be like, I shouldn't use Nick, but I just use Nick twice. There are times where he'll like speak in a way that is not considered white, is considered black, or he'll speak about not equality, but he'll speak about his group of people doing better. So if anybody else does that again, he will call them out and stereotype them and say they represent his people. But like nobody says when Nick says something that it represents all whites, right? Well, I shouldn't say that. Some people do, but white people fight against that. White people will fight you to tooth and nail, and they'll say, well, we're not really racist, and they'll point out white liberals. They'll point out how publicly they can't say certain things. But my rebuttal to that is always, you may not say certain things, but you're thinking the same thing everybody else is thinking. So that's kind of my point, not just with the show, but like how my philosophy is in life is, I don't think even though groups have different genetics, different pros, cons, different good traits, different bad traits, for the most part, we're all human, and we have similar thoughts. We have more in common than where we disagree. So my point is saying I have never wanted to cancel Nick because I don't think he needs to be canceled. I more so think that obviously he's got a lot of juice, he's got a lot of energy. what he's saying resonates with white people, right? Not everything he says, but some of it resonates with a lot of white people. So there's good and bad that Nick is saying. So I think that Nick represents the good and bad in white culture. Just like a person like me, at one point I was doing music, but then I also I graduated college. I may get a law degree, so that would be a doctorate, and now I have a podcast. So all of those things about me represent the good and bad. Well, not the music, but you guys get what I'm saying. Who I am represents black people. So what I'm stating is that not just the bad. Like, for example, if I were to cuss, if I were to, like, on one of the Nick videos, I started to, I didn't lack impulse control, but I was like responding to everything he said, right? So whenever I fit a negative black stereotype, people say I'm black. But then if I'm intelligent how I speak, or I perform well, I bring up various perspectives, people don't say I'm black for that. So the point of what I'm trying to say is with myself and Nick, because I'm no better than Nick. Nick has flaws. I have flaws. I have biases. I have things I can't understand. He has things he can't understand. But the point of what I'm saying is that the big problem that we have in America, and this happens with various groups, is we can't say when I do something wrong that I'm representing black people, but then when I do something correct, now we're saying I represent another group of people. At all times, I'm representing black people, and I'll close on this because people will say that Barack Obama wasn't black, well, they don't say Michelle wasn't black, but they'll say that she's not the typical black person. But she was the typical black person in this interview when she said something that people may disagree with, right? So it doesn't work like that where, okay, when Michelle's going to Harvard, she's not black. When she's the first lady and there's no scandals, she's not black, right? But when she says something about black people that you don't like, now she represents black people. But the whole time she was representing black people. Like, her behavior, the whole time we've known her, writing the books is what black people do, right? She wrote books. Black people write books. Melania Trump is doing something with the reading for the kids. That's positive. Michelle was doing something about obesity, right? For everybody, not just blacks, but she wanted more people to exercise, etc. So that's a part of black culture. So my point in closing this episode is to just say that not a lot of people, but some people give me a little flack because I'm kind of like nuanced and I don't want to go overboard on any culture based upon them fitting a stereotype, because just my belief about stereotypes is, yes, stereotypes exist for a reason. They come from a place of truth. The things people are saying are not invalid, but the problem with the stereotype is majority of people never fit a stereotype. That's why it's called, well, I'm not gonna say that's why it's called a stereotype, but that's what a stereotype is. A stereotype represents a minority in a majority. So I'll go on to comments, guys. I've been rambling a little bit more, so if you guys like that,
these meetings.
If you guys like that, let us know in the comments. But we have a few comments today from 5 different videos. Good. People are watching different content. So if you like anything on that we've covered, if you like an episode or you like a segment, check out some of the other segments, check out some of the other episodes, because I try to give like a balanced perspective, obviously, guys. So whether you like or dislike something, check out another piece of content, and see how you feel about it, right? I want to have dialogue with people. So there was a guy who commented a bunch of times. It seems like he likes what I'm saying. So like, if you like it, let us know in the comments. But if you dislike it, still feel free to continue to let us know. I'm going to be open-minded and try to be even more open-minded, because what Nick has shown me is that the more open-minded I am, it actually makes me a better person. I can now, before I get into the comments, I can now see how Nick was. They said he was a Nazi. Then he changed and they still saying he's a Nazi. So it's like, no matter what just like me, no matter what I do, I'm black, I'm a nigga. No matter what Nick do, he's a Nazi. Doesn't matter. All right, let me get into the answers for you guys. The comments. This from Nick Fuentes. You must earn the right to criticize white people. Dude, if ignorance is bliss, then you got to be one blissful motherfucker. I am ignorant in terms of sometimes my behavior, but I'm also ignorant. The word ignorant means to not know. I'm not a genius. I'm not God. I don't know everything. I am ignorant about a lot of things. But I think in this Nick Fuentes clip, he was talking about race. So most likely I did have the statistics to back up what I said. Like, I think 3% of whites commit crime, 6% of blacks. I think 0.5 tenths of blacks commit violent crime, and then like 0.15% of whites commit violent crime. So basically, like, violent crime and crime, etc., again, they represent a minority. So we should not be labeling majorities by what minorities do. It makes no logical sense. This is Nick Fuentes to MAGA. We tried it your way, it didn't work. This is from Roris 5882. The jihadists, let me open it. The jihadist movement is a very small percentage of Islam, but about 80% of Jews support Israel. Before I respond, I'm keeping this all in mind. Plus, Americans have been living under the thumb of a foreign-owned Rothschild's national bank and financial system. Got you. I'm following all this. So when Fuentes refers to their religion, he is obviously only referring to their wealthy ruling class. That is intermarried with royals and high-ranking people from their secret societies. Most of the non-Zion Jews are America first, just like us in America. You said a whole lot. I wholeheartedly agree with you. So, yes, in America and worldwide, the jihadist Muslims who are extremists don't represent the majority. It's a minority. So I don't like when people try to use the Muslim Brotherhood as representing Islamic people. Then you said 80% of Jews support Israel. True, right? I do notice that Jewish people are in support of Israel. Only question I have is, they support Israel thinking that they deserve the land, or they think it knowing that the way the land was got was it was purchased, but what they're doing to the people, like they removed the people who were from there basically and put them in another place. Maybe they know that, and if they know that, then I think the 80% of Jews are wrong. Sometimes I just think that being Jewish people, they've only heard like the media narrative, so they're just in the thought process of, we were kicked out of our land and we got to come back. Yes, you can come back to your land, but you can't kick the people who have been there and never left out. Plus, Americans have been living under the thumb of the Rothschilds. Yes, I'm just learning this, but I was aware that there was talk of like Jews at the top, and then I now learned that the Rothschilds were from Germany. Then they moved to Britain, and then they have connections to America, and they're Jewish, and they are at one point they were behind a lot of the world finances, but the system that they created. I'm thinking that I'm going to find out that the people who are in charge of that system are still, in charge of the current system. So yes, when Nick Fuentes is talking about Jewish people, he more so means the wealthy ruling class. I agree. I've only disagreed with him because when he says the Jews, it's like when people say the blacks or the whites, etc. I don't like the terms. I will only say the whites or the blacks or the Jews when I'm trying to use someone's logic against them. Never to myself do I actually believe calling the majority, using a minority to represent the majority is accurate. Most of the non-Zion, yes, right. So if they're not a Zionist Jew in the first place, they probably are America first. But like you said, 80% of Jews are so in support of Israel. So I don't know if you think that those 80% are Zionists or not. Got two more clips for you guys. This is the blackface from Lily Gaddis. God and the Son is killing them off, and they are at their last fight against children instead of trying to save themselves. But it will all be over soon for these devils. Not sure who's, who, I don't know which group, if she's talking about whites or blacks, who she thinks is about to be over with for, but I want whites and blacks to survive. I also think whites and blacks are the same, because again, I look at race through genotypes and genetics, not so much what people think, which is skin color, right? So I just think that the dark-skinned people with the coarse hair and the dark-skinned people with the straight hair, their ancestors were just in the sun longer, and then the ones who are lighter skinned, their ancestors weren't as exposed to as many UV lights, and then they also had different diets because of that, where they had milk, where they didn't have various of the nutrients that were in Africa. So basically those two things, dieting and exposure to the sun, change people's physical appearance. So though I understand whites and blacks are different and they have different genetics, I don't believe it's because we're a different race of people. I just think that over time, being in different places, having different diets, made us look different, and that's how people basically judge. That was 4. You wanted me to get another one, or I'm good? All right, I'll get one more. All right, so there's a guy who commented on a few of our things. His name is Diesel. Appreciate you, bro. I seen the comments and that you liked the videos, and you had a lot of interesting things to say. So I'm actually gonna read one of the ones where you talked a little in depth. So this one was to Nick Fuentes. America is not a nation. It says, I'm a white Muslim married to a black Christian queen. All positives, bro. You're white. You marry somebody black. If that's who you love, great. If you were to marry somebody white, great. You happen to be a Muslim. She happens to be a Christian. Oh, this is so crazy, bro. So not only is it a white and a black, but a Muslim and a Christian. The white is the Muslim and the black is the Christian. Bro, that's funny. It kind of goes against all kind of stereotypes. So I love when people, go against, what people think would be the case. So that's tight, bro. We have, obviously y'all got a mixed daughter. She couldn't come out no other way. I'm sure she came out beautiful, bro. We both know as long as we believe and trust in God and plan for us, we pray together. Wonderful. They pray together to the same God, but have two different religions. Guys, do you see how this can work on a national and a world scale? We could pray to, you don't have to pray to the same God, but you can pray to the same God, but be of a different religion. They do it in the same household, guys. We will work better than you'd ever think. That's true. Being able to combine and accept differences in folks and still love them for who they are. Y'all are a wonderful couple. You're a wonderful person. I mean, I think I'm on that vibe. Maybe that's why you've commented so much, bro. It seems like we just, not only do we agree on like the specific statements as you're talking, it's nuance to what you're saying, and there's like double sides in your actual life. So yeah, like that's how my mind works. So you and your wife seem to be lovely people. The ones bashing on everybody else that isn't like them. Meanwhile, they're playing righteous and pure. Bro, we like spiritual brothers or whatever, like spiritual animals. Like, yeah, like when people are going around bashing other people, I always say that's like an inward thing, right? So people could say anything they want about me and I laugh. So like, even when I'm saying things about Nick, I don't mind meeting Nick, having lunch with Nick, picking Nick's brain. Like, we disagree on an ideological standpoint. So I think that two people may not always agree, but I can't speak for him, but there's no hate from me. I don't want nobody to hurt Nick, cancel Nick, etc. I more so think it's funny to just kind of go back and forth in like an intellectual conversation with a person and see, okay, you think my people dumb? I think our people are not that much different. Let's have a talk and let's see. Are whites really as superior as you think? Because if so, you should be able to highlight this in a logical debate is my point with him, which I think he can't do. And that's why I think he's been changing some of his positions. Are the real problem. Yeah, so people who think they're righteous, right? So I think I'm a Christian, but like I always tell people, like, equal love to Muslims, equal love to Hindu, equal love to atheists, etc. Because just like from my standpoint, right, I can't speak like for nobody else. What works for everybody works for them. So you got some people who may be stricter Christians than me. If you being a strict Christian helps your family, it helps you to have a closer relationship with God, it helps you to be better in your work. You good. That's a positive thing. That's a positive thing. But also, if me being how I am, where I'm open to diverse views and open to different perspectives, that's a positive thing, right? So just how we have the Catholics and the Protestants, we can have that amongst Americans. We can have that amongst whites and blacks. My thought is that there is no one right answer. There are many ways to skin a chicken. There's many ways to cook a cow. I'm just making shit up, guys, but you get what I'm saying. There's more than one answer to a problem, and I just believe that my answer can work for me and others, but someone else's answer can work for them and others. That was my last comment for today. I've seen in the last few episodes, the last 3 or 4, people have been watching the episodes longer, right? So if you guys are liking, nobody has commented this, so sometimes I think optimistically, but people are watching episodes longer. So if you guys like, my new tone, my new, not a new approach, but just my, the new way I'm going about delivering the information, let us know in the comments, or let us know by just keep watching until the end, guys, right? So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace. Have a blessed day. If you like this video, please smash the like button, comment, and subscribe. New shows airing Monday through Thursday.